A group of 4 friends were hiking through the desert when, midway through the hike, one of them decided to send an update to family and friends and snapped this photo. Everyone replied happily, glad they were enjoying the trip and that everything seemed to be going well, until one person asked a strange question. "Are you guys alone out there?" Confused, the hiker quickly replied they had been alone the entire time. That's when the person pointed out something in the image. Standing farther up ahead, partially hidden in the distance, was what appeared to be a girl with brown hair wearing a white dress. Disturbingly, the group realized they had already walked past that exact area and never saw anyone there, which raised even more questions. If it really was just another person, why was she hiding from them? And why would someone be dressed like that deep in the middle of the desert? The image left the group unsettled long after the hike ended. A man was camping alone at a remote worksite in the desert when he noticed a shadow outside his tent. At first, he assumed it was one of his workers returning to camp, but as he looked closer, he realized it wasn't normal. He grabbed his camera and zoomed in. Standing outside the tent was a humanoid figure with an unusual bluish hue to his skin. The man began to pray, convinced he was looking at a jinn. What happened next is unknown. Even though the footage looks terrifying, it does feel a bit staged in the way it's filmed and framed. YouTuber UV Prajapati was out hiking alone on a deserted mountain when he started hearing strange noises coming from the distance. He stopped walking, and that's when he spotted it. Far away on the mountainside, a dark figure could be seen standing motionless.
Oh my God.
The unsettling sounds continued echoing through the area as he kept recording, but because of the distance and poor visibility, it was impossible to clearly identify what the figure actually was, whether it was a person, an animal, or something else entirely. The encounter left the hiker unsettled. A woman named Kelsey Pitman disappeared near Death Valley National Park in November 2024 under mysterious circumstances. Very little has ever been publicly released about why the 33-year-old was in the area to begin with. Authorities only confirmed that she had last been in contact with police in Utah before communication suddenly stopped. Months later, her vehicle, a 2009 Chevrolet HHR, was discovered abandoned in a remote desert area off Highway 190 near Death Valley National Park. The area, known locally as the Pads or Slab City, is isolated and surrounded by harsh desert terrain. Investigators searched the area extensively using drones, cadaver dogs, rescue crews, and aerial support, but Kelsey was nowhere to be found. As months passed with no answers, many feared the worst. Then, nearly 9 months after disappearing, the Inyo County Sheriff's Office announced something unexpected. Kelsey Pitman had been found alive in Colorado. Officials released no details about where she had been, how she survived, or what exactly happened, out of respect for her privacy. This footage was captured while driving down a deserted road in the western Sahara. Suddenly, a massive swarm of locusts appeared.
Again, locusts.
Within seconds, the insects began slamming into the windshield, covering the car almost completely. Despite the chaos, the driver chose to keep moving through it. What would you have done in that situation? Somewhere deep in the Superstition Mountains of Arizona, a hidden gold mine is said to exist. The legend centers around a German immigrant named Jacob Waltz, a man who would disappear into the mountains for days or even weeks at a time before returning with unusually rich gold unlike anything found in known mines nearby. The mountains themselves already carried a dark reputation long before Waltz arrived. Native tribes in the area warned that powerful spirits lived within the caves and valleys, and that outsiders who entered the mountains often never returned. Before his death in 1891, Wallace reportedly gave vague and contradictory directions about the mine's location to his neighbor, but he never revealed a clear path. And after he died, people began searching for the lost gold. One of the most famous cases happened in 1931, when a prospector named Adolf Ruth entered the mountains carrying what he claimed was a centuries-old Spanish treasure map. Months later, his body was discovered with 2 gunshot wounds to the head. The map was missing. Over the decades, many others have vanished or died searching for the mine. From heatstroke, falls, snake bites, gunfights, and mysterious disappearances deep in the unforgiving desert terrain. Even modern technology like ground-penetrating radar and satellite imaging has failed to locate anything hidden within the mountains. So after more than a century of searching, is the lost Dutchman's gold mine still hidden somewhere out there, or did Jacob Waltz take the secret with him to the grave? On March 16, 2026, a video was posted from the Utah wilderness. A man was hiking through a remote stretch of desert mountains when something inside one of the cliffs suddenly caught his attention. When he zoomed in, a large creature appeared to lift its head from inside a cave. It wasn't a bear, and it didn't resemble any normal animal he recognized. The figure seemed to have the body of a mammal, but features resembling a massive bird, far too large to be an eagle or hawk. Online, some theorists immediately began claiming it could be a griffin, a legendary creature described for thousands of years in ancient cultures like Egypt, Persia, and Greece. Stories often portrayed griffins as powerful creatures with the body of a lion and the head or wings of a giant bird. Some people believe those stories were purely mythological. Others aren't so sure. But honestly, the footage becomes a lot less convincing when you realize it was uploaded by a TikTok account called AI Experiment, which makes it far more likely that the creature was digitally created rather than something real hiding in the mountains. YouTuber Remote Trooper drove deep into the Las Vegas desert on January 11, 2025, after spotting unusual formations on Google Earth that caught his attention. Curious to see them in person, he traveled into the remote area and began exploring. Hidden among piles of rock was a vertical shaft estimated to be around 30 to 40 foot deep. As he continued searching the area, things became even stranger.
This is a little weird. Yeah, somebody just dug down a little bit for no reason at all. Stacked up some rocks right there. That's cool. What a weird thing that somebody would build this. It's about 3 feet tall, I guess. Oh, that's a really old belt.
Near one of the locations he had marked from Google Maps, he came across abandoned clothing.
Yeah, it's right next to this clothing here. Looks like an old jacket of some sort. Don't really see any
A jacket and a pair of jeans. According to him, the jeans appeared stained with what looked like dried blood. He documented everything on camera before eventually leaving the area, unsure whether what he had found should be reported to authorities.
So I for sure see like a 4 foot high rock pile and then maybe a makeshift structure behind it. Another weird thing is there are car tracks going up that hill way far off trail, so proceed with caution. No recent footprints anywhere.
So what exactly did he stumble upon hidden out there in the middle of the desert? In 1999, a man named David Parker Ray was arrested in New Mexico after a woman managed to escape from his property and flag down a passing car. What investigators discovered afterward would become one of the most disturbing criminal cases in FBI history. On Ray's property near Elephant Butte, police found a soundproof trailer he referred to as his toy box. Inside were chains, surgical tools, restraints, pulleys, and devices specifically designed for torture. Investigators also discovered a cassette tape, a recording Ray allegedly played for victims after they regained consciousness inside the trailer. The tape calmly explained what was going to happen to them. According to investigators, Ray had allegedly kidnapped women for decades, sometimes holding victims captive for months at a time. Authorities believed he may have assaulted as many as 60 women, though only a small number of victims were ever officially identified. What made the case even more disturbing was that no bodies directly connected to Ray were ever found. Investigators suspected victims may have been buried, dumped in nearby lakes, or hidden in remote desert areas, but the full truth was never uncovered. Ray died in prison in 2002 from a heart attack before further interrogation could take place. His accomplices, including his girlfriend and even his own daughter, received separate prison sentences for their involvement. To this day, the true number of victims remains unknown. A man was visiting a historical site when something suddenly made him stop. One of the stone tiles in a columbarium wall had been removed, leaving behind a dark opening in the structure. A columbarium is an ancient place used to store the remains of the dead, with small sealed compartments built directly into the walls. But as he walked past the opening, he heard something disturbing. Knocking sounds. Then, moments later, what sounded like muffled screaming coming from inside. It almost seemed as if someone was desperately trying to get out. The man immediately panicked, backing away from the wall while continuing to record the scene. YouTuber Kate Ventures was camping in Zion National Park with two friends when she went to her tent to grab something. As she unzipped it, she noticed a dark shadow right outside the other entrance. A man was standing there in complete darkness. She quietly zipped the tent back up and ran back to her friends. The man reportedly stayed in that same spot for around 15 minutes.
I just went up to my tent and there was a guy standing in the dark right behind my tent and it freaked me out. So I'm in my car right now and they're calling an emergency line and yeah.
They called the emergency camp line, but he disappeared right before anyone arrived. Kate ended up spending the night in her car instead. Was he just someone wandering in a confused state, or did he know exactly where he was standing? Two men investigating the source of mysterious booming sounds in a remote area made an unexpected discovery. A door welded directly into the side of a mountain. On their first visit, quad bikes appeared on the trail behind them. Not knowing who was following, they left the area, but they returned later. The entrance showed clear signs of frequent use, yet the door was shut from the inside, and behind it, they could hear a machine running. They asked locals about it and were told the place was built by a man who believed he was preparing for an alien apocalypse roughly 7 decades ago. With help from some locals, they eventually got inside. What they found was just a hollowed-out section of rock. The locals considered the man who built it a madman, but if the place was abandoned, why were machine sounds still coming from behind that door? They couldn't shake the feeling that the locals weren't telling the full story. In Mexico, a team of explorers stumbled upon an odd object. It looked like a perfectly round carved stone. Many quickly linked it to the Bugosphere, a mysterious metallic-looking sphere that went viral online after claims it may have had unexplained origins. The carvings depicted aliens and otherworldly beings, but they didn't appear modern, more like something ancient that had been buried for years. Many believe it could be evidence of ancient alien contact. Maybe it's a hoax, maybe misinterpreted art, or maybe it's a piece of history yet to be revealed. A man was visiting the Great Pyramid of Giza when he noticed a strange object hovering above the area. According to the man, it made no real noise aside from a faint humming sound. he quickly started recording and later posted the footage online.
Okay, this is unbelievable.
Some people believed it could be something extraterrestrial, especially since the pyramids have been connected to UFO theories for years. Others thought it was more likely just a balloon, drone, or editing trick. And honestly, if it really was something unusual, wouldn't many more visitors have recorded or reported it too? A group of men were out in a desert area late at night for unknown reasons when they captured this clip. A covering lay flat over a patch of earth. When they lifted it, they found a deep hole filled with burning candles, and sitting right beside it, a person. The video ends right there without any explanation or context, leaving the entire clip a mystery. Authorities in Arizona launched a major operation called Operation Desert Dawn after growing concerns about critically missing children from Arizona. Over the course of 3 weeks, U.S. Marshals and multiple agencies worked together to locate children believed to be in dangerous and vulnerable situations. The operation focused heavily on areas where missing child cases were especially concentrated. By the end of the mission, 31 missing children had been found. Among the cases were teenagers believed to be victims of trafficking, children struggling with homelessness and substance abuse, and even an 11-year-old girl with reported mental health concerns. One 17-year-old had reportedly been missing for over 18 months before finally being located. Officials described the operation as an effort to remove children from situations involving exploitation, abuse, and serious danger. Thankfully, every child involved was found alive. Someone was driving through the US when they looked up and saw something they couldn't explain. A green laser beam was shooting straight upward into the sky, but there was a gap in the middle that made it seem almost out of this world. There also weren't any major cities nearby for miles, which made people wonder what could have been causing the beam. It could have been almost anything, but no official explanation was ever given, so no one really knows what it was. Deep within the ruins of Hattusa, the 3,000-year-old capital of the ancient Hittite Empire, sits one of archaeology's strangest unexplained objects. A massive green stone weighing 2,200 pounds. The block, believed made of nephrite or serpentinite, sits alone inside the remains of the city's great temple. No inscriptions, no carvings, and no clear explanation for why it was placed there. Archaeologists have studied it for years, but its exact purpose remains unknown. Some researchers believe it may have had ceremonial or religious significance. Others think it could simply have been an important or valuable object brought into the temple complex for reasons now lost to history. What makes the stone even stranger is how unusual it looks compared to the surrounding ruins, which are mostly made of limestone. Today, locals sometimes call it the wish stone, and many visitors still touch it believing it holds special energy or meaning. But after thousands of years, nobody truly knows why it was brought there, or what the Hittites intended it to be. Reddit user Whole Negotiation 1843 posted an image of an 8,000-year-old cave painting discovered in Peru. The painting appears to show a large creature being hunted by multiple people armed with shields and weapons, but its shape doesn't clearly match any familiar animal. Some suggested it could simply be a poorly drawn llama. Others pointed out that llamas don't have long tails like that, and you probably wouldn't need 9 hunters to take one down. One theory mentioned the macrauchina, a prehistoric South American mammal believed to have gone extinct thousands of years ago. That led some people to wonder whether small populations may have survived long enough for humans to encounter, and possibly paint them. Others believe the strange proportions point to something far more unusual. Could ancient humans have encountered a creature science hasn't fully accounted for, or is it simply an 8,000-year-old bad drawing? A group of women standing on top of a mountain noticed 3 glowing orbs hovering in perfect formation. Then one disappeared, then another, then the last one vanished, gone without a trace.
Now it just disappeared.
Were they drones, military technology, or something else entirely. A person came across this strange creature in the desert. After some research, it was identified as the meloid beetle larva. It begins life as something called a triangulin, a tiny, highly active creature with one goal. It climbs flowers and waits. When a bee passes, it latches on and hitches a ride directly into the nest. But some groups go even further. They cluster together and mimic the appearance and scent of a female bee, tricking male bees into carrying them straight to where they need to go. Once inside the nest, they transform. They become soft and slow and begin feeding on bee eggs and stored food. The developing bee dies. The larva keeps feeding until it's fully grown, then leaves the empty nest behind as an adult blister beetle. The unsettling part isn't just what it does, it's how calculated it all seems for something that fits on the tip of your finger. And now, let's watch some more desert encounters.